The Daze Report. Let me open up your mind. Satellite shows mega iceberg released 152 billion tons of fresh water into ocean as it scraped past South Georgia. 152 billion tons of fresh water, equivalent to 20 times the volume of Loch Ness or 61 million Olympic-sized swimming pools, entered the seas around the sub-Antarctic island of South Georgia when the megaberg A68A melted over 3 months in 2020-2021, according to a new study. In July 2017, the A68A iceberg snapped off the Larsen C ice shelf on the Antarctic Peninsula and began its epic 3.5-year, 4,000 km journey across the Southern Ocean. At 5,719 square kilometers in extent, 1/4 the size of Wales, it was the biggest iceberg on Earth when it formed and the sixth largest on record. Around Christmas 2020, the berg received widespread attention as it drifted worryingly close to South Georgia, raising concerns it could harm the island's fragile ecosystem. Researchers from the Center for Polar Observation and Modeling, which is CPOM, and British Antarctic Survey, which is BAS, used satellite measurements to chart the A68A iceberg's area and thickness change throughout its life cycle. The author shows that the berg had melted enough as it drifted to avoid damaging the seafloor around South Georgia by running aground. However, a side effect of the melting was the release of a colossal 152 billion tons of fresh water in close proximity to the island, a disturbance that could have profound impact on the island's marine habitat. For the first 2 years of its life, A68A stayed close to Antarctica in the cold waters of the Weddell Sea and experienced little in the way of melting. Once it began its northward journey across Drake Passage, it traveled through increasingly warm waters and began to melt. The iceberg thinned by 67 meters from its initial 235-meter thickness, with the rate of melting rising sharply as the berg drifted into Scotia Sea around South Georgia. Laura Jarris, GIS and mapping specialist at BAS and co-author of the study, said A68 was an absolutely fascinating iceberg to track all the way from its creation to its end. Frequent measurements allow us to follow every move and breakup of the berg as it moves slowly northward through Iceberg Alley and into the Scotia Sea, where it then gained speed and approached the island of South Georgia very closely. If an iceberg's keel is too deep, it can get stuck on the sea floor. This can be disruptive in several ways. The scour marks can destroy fauna, and the berg itself can block ocean currents and predator foraging routes. All of these potential outcomes were feared when A68A approached South Georgia. However, this new study reveals that it collided only briefly with the sea floor and broke apart shortly afterward, making it less of a risk in terms of blockage by the time it reached the shallow waters around South Georgia. The iceberg's keel had reduced to 141 meters below the ocean surface, shallow enough to avoid the seabed, which is around 150 meters deep. Nevertheless, the ecosystem and wildlife around South Georgia will certainly have felt the impact of the colossal iceberg's visit. When icebergs detach from ice shells, they drift with the ocean currents and wind while releasing cold, fresh meltwater and nutrients as they melt. This process influences the local ocean circulation and fosters biological production around the iceberg. At its peaks, the iceberg was melted at a rate of 7 meters per month, and in total releasing a staggering 152 billion tons of fresh water and nutrients. Anne Brackman-Fogman, a researcher at CPOM and PhD candidate at the University of Leeds School of Earth and Environment, is lead author of the study. She said this is a huge amount of meltwater, and the next thing we want to learn is whether it had a positive or negative impact on the ecosystem around South Georgia. Because A68A took a common route across the Drake Passage, we hope to learn more about icebergs taking a similar trajectory and how they influence the polar oceans. The journey of A68A has been charted using observations from 5 satellites. The iceberg's area change was recorded using a combination of Sentinel-1, Sentinel-3, and MODIS imagery. Meanwhile, the iceberg's thickness change was measured using Cryosat-2 and IceSat-2 altimetry By combining these measurements, the iceberg's area, thickness, and volume change were determined. Tommaso Parinello, Cryosat mission manager at the European Space Agency, said, "Our ability to study every move of the iceberg in such details thanks to the advance in satellite techniques and the use of a variety of measurements and imaging satellites record the location and shape of the iceberg, and data from altimetry missions add a third dimension as they measure the height of surfaces underneath the satellites and can therefore observe how an iceberg melts." So yeah, what people aren't understanding is that when you have an iceberg melt, it's taking out the seawater, which the seawater is a bunch of nutrients, which also can help your body heal, can also help you heal. That's why when you go to the beach, you feel so refreshed once you get out of the beach water. Now, the thing is, they're talking about how will it change the ecosystem. Well, that's why we got the C-19 out here. Because of all the melting icebergs, those icebergs hold diseases from thousands of years, like years past. And when those diseases get out, they affect us in a certain way. And then when that person comes to land, it spreads to people like wildfire in the forest. So this here also is raising the sea level. Certain parts of the U.S. is basically, if it was a huge flood, like would be all underwater. It would probably, I think Texas would probably be the only one that's high ground, but everything else would be underwater. But this isn't real good, and this is why they're doing research to Mars, because they're trying to get the hell off this planet, because they know something we don't know, that this planet is ticking down and that it could go at any time. I don't know if in our lifetime, but it could be the next. We don't know. It could be our lifetime. We don't know. We all may be in our 60s or something and something happens. We don't know. So it is what it is. So man, thank you guys for listening. Like, comment, subscribe, share this, hit that notification bell to select all to receive upcoming notifications. And if you love what you hear, you can go to the description box, hit that link to my Cash App, donate $1, donate $1 million. Whatever you're willing to give, we accept. Thank you all for listening, man. And this is the Dazier Report. We're signing off. Peace.